What's going on, everybody? It's the Bull Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be discussing the players that had their first playoff game in the last game, game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks, and talking about whether they had a good impact, a good contribution, or whether or not their first impression was a relatively poor one. At the end of the day, we have a long way to go in this playoff series, and by no means will game 1 and the first playoff game these guys go through will dictate their future in the NBA playoffs, their advancement towards the NBA playoffs and the future of the Chicago Bulls team. But first impressions do mean a lot, especially because this is currently the only thing that we have based off to go with at the moment. We've only had one game. Game 2 is in a few days, ladies and gentlemen. So we got a couple of things that we can talk about with our first playoff debutants with the Chicago Bulls. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the current Chicago Bulls team, and I guess who impressed you the most out of everybody that just debuted for the NBA playoffs. I'm not talking about for this team because, of course, everybody, when it comes to this Chicago Bulls team, has debuted in the playoffs together. But I'm talking about the actual first game that some of these guys participated in the NBA playoffs. What were your overall thoughts? Did they give you a big thumbs up, a big thumbs down? Did they make you feel great? Did they let you down? Things like that. Let me know in the comments below. But with the first one we're going to talk about, because again, the minutes were relatively strict in this first game. There were a couple of guys that had great amount of minutes, a couple of guys that had mediocre type of minutes, and all of those will have to contribute in one way or another. So there are a couple of guys that I do kind of feel sorry for, and there are a couple of guys that I thought actually did okay in this first game in the NBA playoffs. So let's start off with the one that got the least minutes, Ayo Dosunmu, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Ayo, at the end of the day, I think played 9 minutes in this playoff game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm going to be honest, I think the first shot that he took shows that he's not afraid of that moment. Granted, there was only limited moments for him, but that's something that I do like. Again, there's something that we didn't see for Patrick Williams, I believe, until late in the second quarter, even probably beyond that, who really knows. But with Ayo, he came in, took a shot very quickly. That's all I really remember him doing, but that's a good sign in my opinion. But overall, I don't have much else to say about Ayo Dosunmu's playoff performance, because at the end of the day, I feel like 9 minutes is nowhere near enough, especially in sporadic minutes as well, to get a good contribution from Ayo. So I guess his first playoff experience for me personally is a bit of a neutral one. There's not a high, there's not a low. And that's just how I personally see it. If he had a little bit more minutes, we would have a lot more to assess when it comes to Ayo Dosunmu and his playoff experience. But at the end of the day, that's really it, ladies and gentlemen. We needed to see him to play more minutes. Something that Billy Donovan said that caught my eye about Ayo Dosunmu not too long ago was that he trusts Ayo Dosunmu, but he wants to play the veterans at the most that they can. So Ayo's a rookie at the end of the day. That's going to leave a lot left to be desired for him. I don't think we're going to see too much more of Ayo Dosunmu than what we currently saw. But there are opportunities in the future where if he does step up, he might get some of Coby White's minutes, because I think Coby White, by far, off of the bench, was the biggest contributor on the team. And that's why he got a little bit more minutes compared to everybody else. But the bench guys, including Ayo, if they end up having that type of game going forward, then they will probably get the bulk of the minutes going forward as well off of that bench. So there's work to be done and there's goals to be had for some of these players if they want more minutes in game 2. So we'll wait and see what will end up happening in game 2, who's going to step up off of this bench and who's going to contribute outside of the starting lineup. Very, very interesting. But moving into Coby White, ladies and gentlemen, I thought Coby White was actually very good. I was heavily surprised with what I saw from Coby White in, I guess, this first game, his first playoff game. Now, the thing with Coby White is we know his weaknesses in this team. We know sometimes he's a liability on defense. We know sometimes he's a streaky shooter and he's very inconsistent. But the first playoff game, the first impression is something I really enjoyed. Again, we needed someone to just have a little bit more of that scoring edge for the Chicago Bulls team. And I think Coby White delivered that in his first playoff game for the Chicago Bulls. Some of the shots that he made, at the end of the day, they were a bit questionable, let's be honest. Some of them were contested threes, but he made them. And that's the most important thing. And it's something that I think if we see this type of performance going forward in game 2, in game 3, in game 4, if there's a game 5, and so on and so on, then in my opinion, he's kind of fighting for his playoff career. He's fighting for his Bulls career as well. If he disappoints, there is not many people that are going to be willing to change their mind on Kobe White. And maybe AK will also be part of that discussion as well. With 1 year left in his contract after this year, this is a good start, in my opinion, to ensure that he could be here next year for the Chicago Bulls. But overall, we'll have to wait and see. And he needs to keep up that performance. I think he was the only guy that shot a fairly decent percentage in this game. He had 12 points and 4 rebounds. He played 23 minutes and he contributed in almost all of those ways. So very, very positive in my opinion. Probably one of the more positive discussion points for the Chicago Bulls and the NBA playoffs, game 1 to be specific. So we're going to move on to Patrick Williams. I think there are certain things with Patrick Williams that I could put the blame on him, and there are certain things with Patrick Williams that I can kind of blame the coaching staff. For example, I feel like Giannis had the bulk of his points because we tried to front Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Patrick Williams was the guy fronting Giannis. And I personally don't believe that's what Patrick Williams should be doing. But at the end of the day, that's something I believe the coaching staff had set up. I think they're trying to front him so he doesn't get post position. And at the end of the day, all they had to do was really throw it to the rim to get easy buckets for Giannis. And unfortunately, it wasn't just Patrick Williams, but for the most of the time, it was Patrick Williams. And I put that on the coaching staff more than I put it on Patrick Williams. However, there were so many times where he was hesitant, so many times where he had the ball, he passed it off, so many times where he wasn't involved, and it reflects in the amount of shots that he took. 21 shots in the last game against Minnesota, 3 shots in this Game 1 series against the Milwaukee Bucks. And he played 23 minutes to only chuck up 3 shots. And one of them he got to the foul line. Look, I can understand Patrick Williams, it's nervous, it's his first playoff experience. But that, in my opinion, has to change going forward. So that first playoff experience, I think Patrick Williams let me down a little bit there. But I also feel like it's not all his fault. That's the type of situation that you're dealing with Patrick Williams. Because I feel like the tactic of fronting can't just be on Patrick Williams. There has to be guys to help after Giannis gets the ball. And at the end of the day, even in the post, they're going to have to double team. The help is always going to have to be there when you're guarding Giannis and when there are multiple guys guarding Giannis. So that's not Patrick Williams' fault entirely. I think that's some of it has to be on the coaching staff in that retrospect. But he has to be much more aggressive than this. I mean, if we're going to see this type of Patrick Williams, I honestly think we should go in a different direction in the starting lineup. No disrespect to Patrick Williams here. He's a big body. He's physical. He does the right things when he's told to do the right things. But in order to be a presence in this playoff series, again, it goes with Caruso as well, a bunch of guys, you have to make an impact in your minutes. You can't just sit there and be a passenger. No passengers allowed. If you play as a passenger, you have to get those limited minutes. You have to go to the bench. So next game is going to be very important because I don't think he had a very good first impression in this game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And then the last person that had their debut for the Chicago Bulls in the NBA playoffs is Zach LaVine. And I was saying to one of the people in my comments earlier, it's a bit crazy how we see Zach LaVine's first playoff experience at this point in time in his career, where he's on the verge of potentially getting either a supermax or a max contract, or maybe he doesn't earn that max contract if he doesn't deliver. And you're also in a situation where he's had so many years in the NBA playoffs, or in the NBA, I should say, and this is the first time he's in the NBA playoffs. It's a bit of a weird situation for Zach LaVine. Now, there are good things, there are bad things with Zach LaVine that I saw in that game against Milwaukee. The first positive with Zach LaVine is that he had an attention to detail on the rebounding side that I haven't seen from Zach LaVine in a long, long time. And that comes down to effort, and it comes down to putting in the work and to know that at the end of the day, this is a playoff series. Every possession counts. The more offensive rebounds you give away, the more chances Milwaukee are going to have to score. So everybody has to attack the glass. And I think DeMar did an okay job at that with 8 rebounds. And I thought Zach LaVine did a very good job at that as well with 10 rebounds. And for a playoff debutant, to understand the meaning of every possession and getting rebounds, using his athleticism, being in the right positions at the right time, very good from Zach LaVine. I also thought that he had a really good stint in the game, mainly in that second quarter where he kind of brought us back into this game. At the end of the day, did Zach LaVine shoot well? No, he didn't. Did Zach LaVine do dumb things? Yes, he did. Did Zach LaVine take a very stupid shot at the end of the game? Absolutely. But in that second quarter, you have to give credit to, I guess, his performance that allowed us to come back from 16 points down. And that's a good thing for Zach LaVine. But now, what he has to do is take that moment in time, take those possessions, and figure out how he can make that a consistent thing. Because outside of that second quarter, I really don't think anything else offensively was great for Zach LaVine. Again, that fourth quarter shot was really unacceptable in my opinion. That's a Denzel Valentine against the Miami Heat shot. And I said that in the last game reaction, I'll say it now. If you know, you know. You know that Denzel Valentine shot and Zach LaVine shot almost mirrored it in many ways. But with that being said, there were some good things with Zach LaVine as well, but that shot was unacceptable. And there were a couple of other shots here and there when he was trying to do a little bit of a step back three or just shoot a three off of a screen and stuff like that. Those things are going to be very much critiqued if they don't fall. But if they do fall, no one's going to complain about it. It's very similar to DeRozan. If DeRozan, instead of having 6 from 25 from the field, if he ended up having 15 from 25 from the field, let's say, absolutely no one's going to complain about it, are they? So it's a very similar situation with Zach LaVine. When you're taking those step back threes and you're taking those threes off of screens that are moving and not really having your feet planted, it's not a comfortable shot. People are going to critique you. But if you make it, no one's going to critique you. The same with Vucevic. We critiqued Vucevic 2 from 10 from the three-point line. If he made 6 from 10, I don't think many people would have critiqued Vucevic as much as he did. So at the end of the day, those are all the debuts for the Chicago Bulls. So just to sum it up, I don't really have too much to say about Ayo. I think at the end of the day, to a neutral standpoint, 9 minutes, didn't have much time to really contribute whatsoever. Kobe White, I thought, did fairly well in his first playoff game. And if we see that version of Kobe White in the rest of these games, I think he's fighting for his career at the moment with the Bulls. And I guess people's interpretation of him with the Bulls as well. So that's a good step, but we have to see it consistently. And that's something we know Kobe White has struggled with. Then you also see Patrick Williams, again, did some okay things, but mainly wasn't really a factor in this game whatsoever, in all honesty. And that's partly because of the coaching staff and partly because of himself and his lack of aggressiveness. And then Zach LaVine, good things and bad things, but mainly, in my opinion, needs to do a lot better and needs to have a higher IQ going into the next game. No more shots when there's 14 seconds on the shot clock like that. You got to be better than that. The IQ definitely needs to be targeted out with Zach LaVine, and we'll wait and see if he could deliver in game 2 as well. I thought his rebounding was great. I thought he got us back in the game in the second quarter, but outside of that, there's a lot to be worked on in Zach LaVine's first playoff game. Playoffs, at the end of the day, for a lot of these guys, will determine how valuable they are for the Chicago Bulls, how important they're going to be for our future, whether they're going to be here in our future, and also their value when it comes to their own contracts. For example, Zach LaVine ends up having an incredible series the rest of the way, win or lose. He's almost giving himself a high chance that he's going to get a max contract with this team if he hasn't got it already. That's very important for Zach LaVine, so he has to deliver on that. Kobe White, many people want him gone. Many people don't want him here. He's a restricted free agent after next season. Next season is his last year, then he's a restricted free agent. With Kobe White, if he continues to have that sort of impact off of the bench with limited minutes, that's a very positive thing to see for the Chicago Bulls, and that might give him a possibility that we would want to bring him back in restricted free agency. Ayo Dosunmu and Patrick Williams, in my opinion, I don't think this does much for. They're going to be here next year regardless, and I guess for that future, but it will also for them give them confidence. If Patrick Williams has a great game in one of these playoff series, I think he could take that and learn from it into next season. And Ayo as well, that could do him the world of confidence. And these guys, in terms of development, is a huge important factor, but their security on the Bulls, I think, is well and truly safe. They're not going anywhere next season, so we're going to have a very good Patrick Williams and Ayo, hopefully, next season if they can deliver in one of these games in the NBA playoffs, and if not, hopefully more. And Zach LaVine, yeah, as I said before, this could determine his max contract. It could determine his future on the team as well. For example, if he's going to have games where he's shooting 20%, 10 points, do the Bulls really want to keep him here? I'm sure they will. It's very unlikely that Zach LaVine's leaving next season, but that's something that can creep into the minds of AK and Eversley. If it's the right move in order to keep Zach LaVine, and is he a liability in the NBA playoffs? Stuff like that. These are the questions that, whether rightfully or wrongfully, will be asked. So it's very important for every single one of these guys to continue to fight, continue to improve in every single game in the NBA playoffs. And we'll probably make a video coming back to this after the series is done, or after we get eliminated, or whatever happens first. And we'll talk about this more in detail. But it's a good first impression for some. Some of them are neutral. Some of them were not very good. And we'll just have to see how many of these guys will step up to the plate in the next game, and so on and so forth. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful and safe day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care. And